Greetings, wanderers. Today's topic is: what does Iran-backed actually mean? The whole region is roughly split between two groups of Muslims, Sunnis and Shiites. They're mostly split along national divisions, with Iran being the most populous and economically strongest of the Shiite groups, and Saudi Arabia being the leader among the Sunni nations. As economic powerhouses, those two countries throw their influence around in a variety of means. But if the groups are Sunni-backed, you must never call them Saudi-backed. I'll try to provide a basic overview of the why. I don't care to debate ethics or morality here. Iran's military spending is structured a bit differently than America and other Western nations. Rather than try to outspend and outperform conventional military units, and invest in expensive and complex hardware that requires a lot of manufacturing infrastructure, it makes more sense to provide funding, technical training, and basic armaments, AKS, explosives, towards militias and groups that align with Iranian interests both in their local region and further abroad. The rough structure of this is similar to how the CIA and other Western organizations accomplish the same tasks. These groups are provided direct funding and advise/assist, guidance by handlers in the form of intelligence, money, and weapons to use these tools on targets that align with Iranian geopolitical goals. An attack somewhere in the news by an Iran-backed group can mean anything from "Iran once helped this group but has nothing to do with this attack" to "Iran directly manipulated the situation and caused it to occur by identifying the target, funding the group, and providing vital intelligence throughout the operation planning process." From a financial cost perspective, this method is a very cheap way to wage indirect warfare on an enemy, and its vague nature makes it easy to claim innocence since it usually utilizes non-uniformed combatants from other countries. Not to mention this has the added benefits of having all the casualties being from another country. Which means your people don't get angry with you for sending their family members to die in foreign wars. And you can keep pretending that you have nothing to do with it. It means they are funded, supplied, and given tactical assistance by Iran. The anti-ship missiles the Houthis are firing at vessels are all Iranian-made, and Iranian military and intelligence leaders are providing direct assistance to these groups, which is why several were killed in a strike in Syria. As a term of propaganda, Iran-backed means the speaker wants you to associate this entity with Iran, presumably because the speaker assumes you view Iran negatively. As a descriptive term, Iran-backed means receiving financial, logistical, political, diplomatic, military, or other support from the Islamic Republic of Iran or its agents, such as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps or the Quds Force. Iran is far from Israel. There are people who hate Israel close to Israel. Even though they are members of another nation, have their own group and names and do things, Iran gives money and weapons to these groups. Groups close to Israel are now Iran-backed. This goes back many years and continues to today. Roughly speaking, it's the same way that anything NATO does can be construed as us-backed, regardless of how much the us was directly involved in that mission, because the us is the main financier of the organization. Broadly speaking, Iran and Saudi Arabia are the main financiers of different military groups throughout their respective regions. Whenever the West doesn't like something these groups do, it's easy to just point a finger at either Iran or Saudi Arabia and say they backed it, when in reality there's not really any distinction between where these countries just gave some weapons to the group or actually directed any actions. Because all brown/Arab/Muslim people are evil bogeyman to the West, not much more is needed in reporting besides Iran-backed or Saudi-backed in order to elicit public response how the writers intend. Any other nuance might distract from whatever narrative is being pushed. Iran is what's called a state actor. They fund and train terrorist groups that align with their ideology. Funded by Iran's government based on either political reasons or ideology. Usually has a bone to pick with Saudi Arabia. It's propaganda the Western press says to start wars with no justification. Take a step back from the news and you'll see it's all a facade to keep the wars coming. Means someone USA doesn't like. It's like saying, shark-infested waters, whereas it's their home. Same with Iran, They live there, USA doesn't. Iran gives them money, weapons, and training. It means the Iron Sheik will be making a comeback to WWE soon. Iran-backed means Americans want to kill them. Like the liar who thinks everyone else is lying too, there are several mercenary and military groups that are backed by the US, so they think that every group that is not backed by them must be backed by one of their enemies. There is also the US military complex, which uses its propaganda machine to point at enemies of us and justify its egregious spending. Watch the stock prices of the defense contractors every time there is an attack with weapons allegedly supplied by a nation considered an adversary.